All right. Welcome to the inaugural Evil Genius Fantasy Videocast. Your hosts, Zack and Kevin. So, history shows that a bunch of us have talked on the side via text or phone calls about the league, and um, Kevin and I want to kind of make a monthly video cast of our league and go forth with having special guests and talk just about what's happening in the league and for anybody who cares.
Which
Just give a month.
I hope everybody cares deeply about this.
Very, very deeply. uh, we'll have monthly topics, special guests, things like that. But so we'll send a link out to everybody, and anybody can even chime in with their comments. I hope to get nothing but thumbs up. But I take it the more thumbs down, the better.
Yeah. Because then we're creating some controversy, Zach.
Yes.
A quick little side segment about the name of the podcast. We had a former member of these leagues for a long time. His name was Derek Marcus. He unfortunately passed away. It's about a year and a half ago now, Zach.
Yeah, about.
Yeah. But somehow, no matter how terrible we thought his team was, he would always pull something out of his ass. And so we always called him as the nickname the Evil Genius, because everybody hated to play him. Everybody hated playing his team because you knew something magical was going to happen. And he always just seemed to pick the right guys at the right time. So we just called him the Evil Genius. So out of respect for him, we thought we'd call it the Evil Genius Podcast.
Absolutely.
All
And
right.
he's a founding member of this league. So Little League history is this league, I think, started, I want to say, in 2007, I want to say, in an apartment in Springfield, Oregon, where internet was brand new. And in fact, myself, Derek Marcus, by the way, where I'm sure we'll have some Derek Schlong references at some point during these video casts. But
Oh, yeah.
Derek Marcus, myself, Jason Lloyd, his brother Cody, and a couple other guys just did this manually. And we found a website where you can enter, I think, just word program typing in, and we just kind of kept Derek, the evil genius, literally kept stats. Woke up every day and kept stats on the players we had. We started it actually with fantasy baseball, and
Derek was probably the only one that could be trusted to do it honestly.
yeah, and he did it. And if we pointed out something wrong, he would have a 10-minute argument of why it's not wrong. So, and he was right 99.9% of the time. Anyway, so that coming in, and it was just a lot of painstaking work to do to add up those stats. So the next year, we were surfing the internet and we found the ESPN Online way to do it. And like I said, there were 6 of us that first manual league, and Kevin, buddy of mine since high school, I asked him if he wanted to do it. Me and him have always talked sports anyway, and so he was in, and he got his buddy Henthorn in, and I think to this day, myself, Kevin, Henthorn, and was Derek are the only remaining league managers from the inaugural online season. So, and I can't remember. I think we started it with baseball. Did we do baseball?
Yeah, because I remember. Yeah, you didn't. I didn't know anything about fantasy sports at the time, and I didn't know much about baseball either. I just followed the Reds, and you asked me to do it, and I was like, okay, sure. And I had no idea what I was doing.
Right, and we really didn't even know how it was going to work. I think we only did it for $50 at the time. I think there was 8 of us. Kev, I want to say, because you got Henthorn, and I want to say you might have gotten one other person, maybe that Clay guy. I don't remember.
Yeah, Clay was in for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think Jason's brother still continued to play for a little bit longer as well. But eventually those faded away, and I think we like 1 year went up to like $55 or something like that, and thought, okay. And at the time, none of us had careers. A lot of us, half the league, had just our first job still, or second jobs, or we were just trying to make family ends meet and everything. So it really wasn't a high fee to play anyway. Um, but what was interesting was we had, if you think the rosters are large now, they were even larger back then, especially for football.
Yeah, we had some wild scoring for football, man. Defensive players, all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I want to say our initial football roster was 32,
Hmm.
something like that. Where now it's 18, so or 16. So um, but we scratched the defensive players. One thing, from the league ideology, I've never personally liked team stats or team defense, they call it, because you always
Hmm.
start out with a certain amount of points, and then it could go down to 0, or it can go down to whatever it is, depending on defense and special teams in real life. I always just thought it was kind of a stupid way to do it. I know other leagues like that, but we just don't do it. And since we had individual players, there was kind of no need for it. Um, and still to this day, we just don't do it. You know, one thing we've always wanted to do as well is make it a keeper league. So we've always just stayed away from the standard scoring, how ESPN, Yahoo, and other leagues do their thing. And we wanted to make a keeper league.
Yeah, because the standard leagues rely heavily on touchdowns, right?
Right.
And we just figured, as important as touchdowns are, there are a lot of other stats. A player could rush for 110 yards and they wouldn't get that many points if they didn't score a touchdown. And we kind of wanted to value that stuff.
Right. And the example for me, why we changed it was about that time, being a Bears fan. um, they had Matt Forte, who was the top running back at the time for the Chicago Bears, and he was kind of their speed guy. And their backup was Michael Bush, and uh, you know, Matt Forte would rush for 23 carries, 115 yards, maybe a couple catches, but no touchdowns. Where the Bears would go to goal line and throw Michael Bush in, the bruiser, and Michael Bush would get 3 carries, 8 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And in fantasy, that would score more than Matt Forte. And so it didn't make sense. So we added the rushing attempt stat, just to make the actual running backs good, and then we dumbed down the amount of yards to grab a point in fantasy for like rushing yards, let's say, for running backs and receivers. So the right running backs were always valued the highest in fantasy, like it is in real life, basically. Um, it's kind of the same for all sports. We did the same in basketball. There was a while where the shooting guard position wasn't scoring nearly as high as all the other positions. In fact, at one time we had double doubles were 10 points instead of the current 5 points like it is now. And so, but we noticed top shooting guards at the time, it was like Paul Pierce, and then it, adapted into Stephen Curry and things like that, where for the last, 10 years, Curry's been a top 10 player in the NBA, but fantasy wise, he was scoring 30 something. And so what we did was added a point for any field goal. Um, and so now it's about kosher. It's never going to be perfect, but it's pretty even to all the other positions.
Yeah,
Obviously,
because
every huh?
I was say you might have like a random backup center who'd come in and get 10 points, 10 rebounds, and he would outscore
Good point.
Curry.
Good point.
So
Yeah.
we tried to balance it out to make Curry and those shooting guards worth what they are, in real life.
Yeah. So I mean, I know some guys come into this league and are like, huh, why? Why is the scoring like this? Why this many people on the roster? Why this many keepers? Things like that, because it's not normal to your standard leagues. But this has kind of been the ideology from the beginning that we had. Um, we always kind of wanted to make it a dynasty league as well, so you can actually keep guys over and over. And there's been a couple guys that have come and gone here and there because they don't like the setup, and that's fine. We can always find somebody new. Some people like to have that draft where, like, for instance, this year you got a chance to draft Christian McCaffrey #1 overall or something like that using his stand. So, if anybody wants to, they can, you can start your own league or join one of those leagues. This league's ideology, in theory, is keeping a, keeper league. I mean, we've even floated the idea of a full-on keeper league before and have sat down with, full-on rosters of every team and thought, "Man, can we even do this with like a salary and things like that? Almost fantasy-wise, signing guys to contracts and, we just never done it. So now in all three of our leagues, we have the 25% rule of how many guys you can keep. And I think the ratio is set on all three leagues now.
Yep.
If anybody has questions, comments, why we do it the way we've been doing it, leave them in the comment section or whatever, and maybe we'll try to get to them next week, or next month, I mean. And overall, I think every league we have, all three of the leagues, we have great managers. We everyone talks the right amount of smack. Everyone's really respectful for the most part when they need to be as well. And yeah, I mean, everybody has kind of a different ideology of how they run their team. And I think at some point, Kevin and I are gonna, have a certain segment each month about ideologies of whatever. Um, but yeah, Kevin, anything you want to add to how the rules are set up the way they are, or the setup in general?
Yeah, I think we try to make it as fair and even as we can. You know, having 12 managers, not everybody is going to agree on everything all the time. So we're always open to suggestions, changes. I feel like this is a pretty fluid leagues where if somebody brings up a good point, whether it's scoring, roster size, IR, that kind of stuff, we'll always listen, because we always want to make it as good as we can. So it's just, yeah, we've got, we're always open to suggestions.
Right, and trust me, a lot of you guys have sent me suggestions. We've done some of them. I guess I could sit and go back in history and post how many suggestions we've done and then how many we haven't done. But we definitely, our founding members of myself, Kevin, and Henthorn, we have a text on the side, and if something comes up that we needed, hey, Scott came up with this idea or Christian came up with this idea. What do you guys think? We will text about it. We'll talk about it. But if it's a one step forward, three steps back type of deal, we're most likely not going to do it because the integrity of the league and the way the league was set up in the beginning is just kind of has always flown with a deep dynasty perspective instead of a small roster perspective, I guess it would be one example. So yeah. Kevin, looks like you froze up. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'll get better, I promise.
Oh, I know. So things currently going on in the league right now is the baseball power rankings that we wanted to go through. So just about every draft, Kevin and I just kind of talked and post draft and just kind of saying who do you guys think is the best team? Who do you guys think's not that good? Who do you think had a bad draft, a good draft, some boom picks, some bust picks? Like, can't believe that guy was available that late in the draft type stuff.
I can't believe that guy got drafted so early type of thing.
Yeah. So like Todd drafting Jordan Poole in the first round last year, right? So
my infamous Anthony Randolph pick.
Anthony Randolph pick was amazing. least neither of those were number 1 picks.
Yeah.
But and hey, Christian's Kyle Schwarber pick this year actually worked out for him. I think he's 4 a
I
game last I
know.
saw. So I
Good
know he
dog.
wasn't excited about that, but make sure you don't have your draft on auto pick going into the first round. Anyway, so yeah, we've always gotten together and kind of just talked about how the draft went, and we have with other guys as well. But this is a good place to do that live now. And so I'm gonna share my screen of the standings so far. See here, take a brief rundown of how the league's going this year. So here we are, sitting 2 weeks left of the regular season, and it's looking like 6 of the 7 playoff teams have clinched, just about. And going back to our how the league setup is, like I said, we started off with 6, 8. The goal was always to be at 12. 10 was a great number for a long years, but I kind of just thought it'd be cool to get a couple more teams, make it even deeper, and go from there. We set up. It used to be the playoff bracket. There used to be 2 byes. The winner of each division would get a bye. But now we have it kind of like how the NFL sets up their conference playoffs, where only the winner, the number 1 team, gets a bye. Because one of the main ideologies of this league were to put emphasis on the regular season. So that's why it's not a winner take all league. It's you even get money for winning your division. And so, but there was times in the past where, let's just use this diagram where Nash was. This is actually a perfect diagram. If the season ended now, Nash first place, but Scott technically is the second best team. Brad's technically the third best team, but then you got Henthorn and myself and Trevor all with an 11-8 record. But Henthorn in the old way would get the other bye. And so this is kind of why we set it up the way we have it now, where 7 teams make the playoffs and only 1 team gets a bye, and then 2 through 7 seed are set up by whatever the standings are. Although I do think the 2 seed is still the other division winner, even though the record might not be second best, but they still have to play in the first round and hopefully win.
Yeah, because when we had 10 teams, we had 6 playoff teams. But when we expanded it to 12, we thought 8 was too many making the playoffs. So we just added that 1 extra playoff spot, and gave that first overall team a bye.
Yeah. Yep. So, and we're going to get into the 5 teams that don't make the playoffs later, but for now, I have to say it's a fight for 7th place right now with Jeff, Jason, and Kevin trying to get that 7th spot.
Man, and I'm playing Jason this week.
Yeah, so that could determine a lot. I don't know, Kev. Do you know if you beat Jason the first time?
I feel like I did. I don't really remember though.
All right. Well, after that, there's also Jeff, Jeff always puts together good teams. And although he's been pretty injury stricken, like most of us have actually this year, but don't count him out either. But Kevin, I would say you do have the tiebreaker currently over Lloyd and Mets because you have the better percentage to win the playoffs, according to ESPN.
Yeah.
And then if anybody cares about tiebreakers, you can Google ESPN tiebreaker. We go off of what ESPN says. So there has been times where it looks like, someone, and especially for the draft order the next year, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, but whatever ESPN says is kind of what we go with when it comes to tiebreakers. But when it comes to some draft order stuff, we do it like they do in real life. So, which again is why we put a lot of emphasis on the regular season, because if you're, say, the 7th seed and you somehow win the championship, you're getting the 12th pick the next draft. So playoff seeding bases and where you end up in the playoffs is how you're going to draft also the next year. And that's how they do it in football, basketball. That's how they do it in real life as well. And then the other five, starting with basketball, this year we're doing a lottery, which we'll get into in a sec. But Kev, look at Nash right now. Look at Nash's record right now. Does that I for one have never seen a baseball record this good. I don't think in any of our leagues. Usually they're pretty even. I mean, even Scott's record's really good for baseball. But a 16-3 for Nash, like, I mean, I think that's almost the best all time this late in the season.
I can't remember a better record this late in the season. Yeah, I can't. And
So,
it's interesting because, you look at Nash's team again, and it's, no offense, Nash, bit shocking, but he said he wants to win this year and he's all in. And so he's made a ton of moves and he's just trying to get guys that are hot right now. And man, it's working out for him.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I look at Nash, if you just look at the names of some of these players on Nash's team, you wouldn't, if we're going to redraft all over again, I don't know if Nash has a lot of guys that would go in the first 3 rounds.
Right.
But where some of us that have worse records do, just on name
Right.
recognition. But Nash's overall team is just probably above average in statistics, fantasy statistics. He doesn't really have a bad player on his team.
Yeah.
They're just all steady Marvin in how they play. I mean, he scores. If we go down to here, I want to say he's number one in scoring overall, with Scott right behind him. And so he's putting it together. He's doing it the right way this year. Kudos to Nash. So
About time he
Kev,
figured it out.
would you power rank him number one? I mean, let's just say right now you had to put money on who's going to win the championship. You put your money on Nash.
I mean, probably. I keep doubting his team and he keeps putting up 400 to 500 points every week.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess me too. And hopefully for Nash, his team doesn't fall apart at the worst possible time towards the end of the regular season and our playoffs.
Right.
Because I see a team like Scott's team is pretty darn strong in pitching and hitting as well. And he does have the name recognition, guys. Henthorn has the name recognition, guys. Brad's hitting is ridiculous. And so
I played Brad a few weeks ago, and I swear his hitters were getting like 50, 60 points every single day.
I hate myself for trading Bobby Witt, even though it made sense at the time.
Jeez, he's killing, man. Bobby Wood's smashing right now.
It's ridiculous. I wouldn't be surprised if all of Brad's 7 keepers are hitters.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that some other time. And then myself and Trev, we have a chance, even though both our teams have been kind of.
And we were talking about your team, Zach. Your team has been slumping lately, dude.
Very much so. I've lost 4 of my last 5.
Have you really?
Pretty sure, yeah. Maybe 3 of the last 4, but one or the other. And Thorne's going to beat me this week, so probably about to be a 4 out of the last 5. So, Henthorn throwing out all his guns against me this week. Damn it. So, but nevertheless, so yeah, I mean, into my head, man, I'm making it. It's Scott versus Henthorn in the championship, but
I can see that.
You can't discredit Brad's in his hitting and Nash's overall talent on his entire team. No holes in starting pitching. If you go look at his hitters, most of his hitters are mid 3s or better, and he's just putting it together. So we'll see. Actually, next show we'll probably be in the midst of the baseball playoffs in our September show. So we'll see who's right. You have anything else you want to say about the power rankings?
No, I think that's about right. I mean, me and Jason and Jeff are fighting for that last spot. We're all dealing with injuries right now. I made a few trades at the deadline to kind of get a couple of draft picks for next year. So my team's not as strong as they were a few weeks ago. So I got to rely on my top guys to try to get me through there. But, given how, this, we talked about this at length, horrible my keepers were coming into this year, the fact that I'm even potentially going to make the playoffs is a bit of a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think this might be, this is our 4th year doing the baseball since we re-upped it again.
Worth a bit,
And
yeah.
I think this is the first time I'm even close to making the playoffs. Baseball has been brutal for me these last 3 or 4 years. I think I almost quit like a dozen times. Like the old Nintendo games, reset, start over.
Yeah, but you've done a great job in replenishing giving yourself a chance with the trade for Strider, the trade for who else did you trade for? Yama, things like that.
Yeah.
Like you put yourself in good position, which is what you would do to be a dynasty manager. Yeah, it sucks and when you're out of it, but the one thing about this dynasty league, there's off-season options, there's draft pick trading options, there's a bunch of different options you can utilize to make your team better for the future. It might cost you
Right.
for this season, but don't be afraid to make a move. And we'll get into
Yep.
trade ideologies another time because I think we all have differences in that. But, um, but
Can't wait to get into that.
yeah, we'll get into that. So
I'm gonna start by making fun of Todd.
yeah, maybe we should have Todd on that episode.
Absolutely, we should. Then he can try to defend himself.
Yeah. All right. So what's coming up, Kev? Coming up
Um,
in a week and a half.
our football draft.
Football draft. Tuesday, August 27th, which is not the norm. But first off, I'd like to congratulate Scott tying the knot. I don't know, Scott, why you didn't tell your wife that we have our fantasy draft every Labor Day.
Yeah.
But
They need to know the importance of these leagues.
yeah. But kudos to Scott, and it's going to be awesome for
Yeah.
him. Congrats, and I think Manny's
Congrats,
going to be
buddy.
there well. So we switched the football draft to the 27th. I always like to have the draft as close to the first real game as possible because there has been times where injuries have happened. If we have the draft 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from opening day or the week one of the football or whatever, and then we always have to keep our lock date a few days before the draft, so screws up your team. So that's why we usually do it Labor Day because the following Thursday is usually the first game of the NFL. But no big deal. This year we're doing it on the 27th. I'm going to share my screen for the draft order. Kevin and I will go through that. So here it is. And keep in mind, this is the last time, if anybody reads the front page of our league site, this is the last time we're doing the regular draft in the way it ended with the standings. So for non-playoff teams at least. Well, and playoff teams, some. And starting with basketball, we're going to do a lottery. um, Myself, Kevin, and Henthorn kind of talked about the numbers. We tried to make it as close to how they really are in real life. Not really caring about the decimal point numbers, but down to the whole number. But until then, we're going to talk about that in a sec. But here's the current football draft order, last non-lottery draft that we have. With Trevor having the number one pick, and Kevin, I'm sure you're dying to know who Trevor's going to pick with that number one, so you can plan the action right now.
Oh man, you bet. Once the keeper's locked, I'm gonna be all in Trevor's ear about who he's gonna draft.
Yeah. Trevor, don't
It's
tell him the
interesting, I
truth.
think. What's that?
To Trevor not to tell you the truth.
You better not lie to me, man. Better not lie to me. It's funny. I thought I had, because I think I was top 5 in overall scoring last year, but I was also, I think, number 1 in points against me. So it was just kind of really weird how it worked out. I mean, I'm pretty happy with my keepers. So when I found out I had the number 2 pick, I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I think he had some injury problems. Didn't Burrow miss a lot of last year?
Burrow
And
ended up hurting
yeah,
himself, like Kamara and Brees Hall
right.
didn't really get going until week 4 or 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had some injury issues for sure,
yeah. And we'll see
which
when
seemed to be the theme.
the keepers lock and who's available. Um, Reed is in here for Christian. He's going to take over for Christian, who's still going to do baseball, but Reed's going to take over for football and basketball. And we're done with the lottery draft or whatever we called it.
Oh, the
Now when we
expansion.
expansion draft, that's it. And now when we do these things, we're going to just insert who's getting substituted for, and they're just going to draft in that spot.
Yeah,
So
they're just going to take over that team and just
right.
choose their keepers and draft wherever that person was going to draft.
Right. So there's too
Because I
much
think
problems with that
because
sometimes. So
yeah, we try to incentivize people to join the leagues. Because sometimes it's a little bit tough to find somebody for baseball or football. Somebody might be like, man, I already have like 2 other teams I'm going to be doing. So we try to incentivize them by saying, all right, well, we'll do an expansion draft so you can at least have a little more control over who you're picking and who your team is. But at the same time, that was negatively impacting the people who were already in the league.
right.
And so we tried to kind of find that balance. And there just ended up being some issues with the expansion draft.
Yep.
So we just decided that, hey, whoever we bring in, you're just going to take over the team for the person that left, and you're going to draft whoever they're going to draft. And
Yeah.
hopefully
And most
that'll
people
go the
don't
way it
care. I mean,
goes.
most people don't care.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, someone cares, but once you're in it, you're in it. I mean, Reed's going to inherit
Well,
Lamar Jackson, who was like third in scoring last year, right? It's and
yeah.
most of the time,
And I
and
think,
then oh, go ahead.
I was saying, I think given the fact that it is a dynasty league, you take over the team and you may not love the team. You might have a couple good keepers, but again, kind of what you were talking about earlier, Zach, man, make some trades.
Don't be
Make some
afraid. Yeah,
trades and
make
just
some
know
deals.
that you might not be great the first year, but make some trades, get the guys that you want, and build the
Yeah.
team that you want. That's the whole point of the dynasty league.
You think some rookie's going to be good, maybe not the first year, but maybe the second or third year. One reason we bumped it up to 25% keepers is so if you want your last keeper to be a potentially good guy, go ahead and draft him. You might be right, you might be wrong, might not know for a couple of years, but you can do it if you want.
That's like Reeves. Reeves always try to draft those young guys. Same thing with the Thule in
Yeah,
basketball.
yeah. It's been highly successful a lot of the time. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
not. You just never know what's going to happen, um, but yeah, and for those that don't know, you can't keep rookies. I'll say this again, you can't keep rookies in baseball. Japanese players that come over also count as rookies in the major league. Um, so that's why we have that rule. Um, so yeah, Trevor, Kevin, Nash, Reed, and Brad are going to be the top 5. The next 3 are Scott, Reeves, and myself. And it's all the people that lose in the first round. If you see, I actually tied for the best record in the league last year. I was second in my division with John having the tiebreaker, so he got the one bye. But then I lost in the first round,
Zach, who'd
so
you lose to?
I don't remember. But but yeah, so let's just take a gander. Standings. Boom. Here's last year's bracket. I lost to Henthorn. Gosh, Henthorn's always. I probably have the worst record ever against Henthorn.
No, we'll get into that too, historical records and all that kind of stuff.
We got those.
Because there always seem to be a manager or two that you just can't beat, right?
Just can't wait. Yep.
I
So
feel like I
check
was
this out.
struggling with Jeff.
Remember, if why another reason the regular season matters is you get the bonus points being the higher seed in the playoffs. And this year is a better example than any year. Todd actually scored more points than Manny. But because in football and also in baseball, there's a 10-point advantage where there's a 20-point advantage in basketball because of such high scores. Todd actually outscored Manny by 5 points, but because Manny had the higher seed in the regular season and the tiebreaker over Todd in the regular season, Manny actually won because of those 10 points. That sucks, Todd. And I think that's happened one or two other times too. I know it has. So maybe not in the championship, but it has happened before.
Brutal loss, brutal.
Yeah. So back to the playoff order. This is how it is. The people that lost in the semifinals, Henthorn and John, get the next 2 picks, and then the runner-up, which was Todd, and the champion, Manny, gets the 12th pick. And remember, we do a snake order. And weirdly, ESPN doesn't allow us to do the regular order like it is in real life. It's always a snake order. Now, there is, other types of drafts like salary cap drafts and things like that, but we've just always done it like this because it makes sense to this type of dynasty league. So, guys, remember?
It's weird ESPN doesn't allow that.
It is weird. I mean, it technically would if I made all these manual trades of draft picks, but it would just take forever. So we just do it like it is now. But I guess if that was something, that would be something, I would take the time to do if we all wanted to vote on it. That's something I'd be okay with. But bring it up in the comments if everybody wants to, and that's something that I would give to the majority opinion. So
yep.
So yeah, remember, keepers lock on the 25th, so 9 days away. Make sure you pick your 4 football keepers. Remember, anybody but rookies, and then they will all go to the pool, and we are drafting, I think at 6:00 Pacific time, since some of you don't live in the Pacific time zone, on the 27th. So anything else, Kevin, about the draft?
No, I don't think so. It's like Christmas time though, man. I love draft season.
Almost the best time of year because we have 2 drafts in 2 straight months.
I know. Drafting is half the fun of doing these leagues, man.
Yeah, well, it is for some of us, but for some of us in the past have not liked drafting. And, good point about drafting. We could bring this up another time, maybe later, but the reason we do 2 minutes doesn't mean you have to take 2 minutes, but if the person who's drafting wants to take 2 minutes, they can. It's a dynasty league. For me personally, I can't think in 30 seconds. I know Andre, wanted always a 30-second per pick draft, but Kevin, how many times do we do this draft a year? 3 times, right? What's 3 days out of 365 days to tell your wife and your kids, look, I'm going to sit down for a couple hours and do a draft?
And I was about to say that. It's not even like it takes the whole day. It's just a couple hours. And especially now that we do it online, and because remember back in the day, we used to get together and do these drafts live, and you had a big old whiteboard.
Right on
that
the
manual timer that you had?
Right on the back, I had a big whiteboard. Well, first we had a big piece of paper. We just go write them up, and then we had the whiteboard. Yep.
And then there was that was out of control because people would take like 10 minutes to make a pick. Those drafts would last hours. Then you got that manual timer. Remember that?
Especially when our rosters were doubled.
Yeah. So I think the fact that it's online, our rosters are smaller. I mean, I don't even think baseball is the longest draft, and I think that lasts an hour and a half, maybe. Yeah. Basketball takes like 45 minutes.
Right.
And I think too, initially, you don't need the full 2 minutes for the first 4 or 5 rounds because you're like, oh, this dude's there. Boom, I'm taking him. Boom, I'm taking him. It's in the later rounds when you're trying to do a little bit of research and read up on the current news for a couple of different players you might be thinking about. That's really when it matters. The first 4, 5, 6 rounds doesn't matter a whole lot because you kind of know who you're drafting, and if they're there, you're gonna pick them right away.
And each person's building their team differently.
Yeah.
So some people might need that 2 minutes. If you know who you want right away, pick them right away. Who cares?
For instance, with this year's baseball draft, I went into it thinking I'm just going to draft a bunch of guys that I think have potential. So it was a little bit tougher for me because I'm trying to read up on them, check out their stats. So yeah, that full 2 minutes helps big time.
Yeah.
So once you shut your mouth, Scott, about 30 seconds.
Right. So let's see what else. There was one other thing we were going to talk about.
I think one of the things I'll touch on too is, we have 12 members in this league, and ideally we'd like to get each person on at some point as little guest speakers so they can throw their input in, their 2 cents, maybe talk about, what their process is and how they draft and why they draft that way and how they're trying to build their teams.
If you want to disclose it, if they want
Yeah.
to. Some people don't want to disclose their draft strategies, but I get it.
I think, it just kind of depends. Are you trying to win now? You're trying to build for the future? There's all that stuff to kind of consider, right? A mix of both.
Everyone's got a price too. So.
Then you had one of our former members, Derek Long, who every draft was just a head scratcher afterwards. Nobody knew what his plan was. He couldn't even pronounce half the guys
and that was the great part. That was the great part. Dwayne Bowie. And one thing that was great about that is we all got together. Obviously I say the majority of us are in Eugene and Salem. The majority of us. And I know Jeff, Scott, Vituli in basketball. There might be 1 or 2 other people out there that don't live in
Christian.
Christian, yeah. And so it's not possible pretty much. But I know there were talks of us all going to Henthorns this year, so we're going to have to table that another time. But I think one year we're going to try to get everyone together, and even for the people far away, I know a lot of you are actually at least from here. So we'll tell you guys ahead of time, and if you want to make the 2 months ahead of time plane ticket and come on out here, let's do it. We were going to go golfing first, just have a big old draft party type of thing, and then run around Henthorn's house naked. So,
Lindsay will appreciate that.
Yeah. So, lastly, next show. We're gonna try to make these anywhere around 45 minutes to an hour every month. We want the comments if possible. And we're just going to touch on what's current in our fantasy league basically. And but next show, what we're going to do is we're actually going to have the live fantasy lottery for basketball on this show. I'm not going to post about it. It's going to almost make people watch the show, but obviously you can fast forward to the results. But Kevin and I are going to break down all the picks, all the draft slots and things like that. And so I'm going to share my screen what the lottery percentage is going to look like for each team.
And I want to say this, keep in mind that this isn't a random percentage that we came up with. We tried to mirror what the percentages are, equal to what they are in real life with the basketball lottery. And I think baseball also, right, Zach?
Yeah, all 3. I think the NFL is the only one that doesn't have a lottery still. Right. And yeah, I mean, obviously those leagues have 30-something teams where we only have 12, so we tried to make the ratio fit our team numbers that are in our league. But this is what we came up with right here. And again, based off last year's standings, I showed you with the football draft based on that. So it'll still go off that, but picks 5 or places 5 through 12 is going to be thrown into a lottery. So if you make the
Yes.
semifinals, you're not in the lottery. It's just you're
Right.
just going to end with how you've finished in the playoffs. So obviously you're picking last in the first round if you won the championship still, and so on.
And yeah, and you can see the percentages drop big time,
And they
for like
should.
the fifth, sixth, and seventh spot. So
They should.
most likely the order is going to be pretty similar to what this order is right here. But just like in real
Well,
life, it at least gives, maybe somebody who finished eighth place a chance at the number one pick, just like it would in real life,
right.
even though
Right.
odds are it won't happen.
Yeah. And we have had some tanking problems in the past. And so this is another reason we give all the last three teams the same percentage. So it really doesn't you no good during season to try to lose or tank, which if you go look at our little bylaws on the front page, we have a penalty for. No one has ever gone to the point of being deliberately tanking by not putting players in or something like that to a huge extent. Even though I bat an eye at when I look at some teams' daily rosters and think to myself, yeah, you could have put that guy in. He's one of your keepers, but that's why we say you put in your best players. But now, while we have this lottery, it might not matter because you have the bottom three all will have the same chance of getting first pick overall and getting the eighth pick overall. So,
Just trying to maintain integrity, right?
yeah, that's really all it is. I mean, yeah, it's more integrity. It's not really a fairness thing. It's an integrity thing. Um, so, and we've seen it in real life. It doesn't mean the fifth place or sixth place team can't get it. Look at real life with Derrick Rose, with LeBron going to Cleveland, with Odin going to Portland. I want to say there was another Portland. And the whole Seattle and Durant. That was Odin. Anyway, it can happen, and we're gonna do it live. And feel free to Google fantasy generator draft whatever, and you guys can toy with these websites that are all roughly the same. Um, I have one selected. It's the same. I'm going to enter everybody's name who's eligible for the lottery live on this show, and so there's no funny business go on. And the one we do on this show next month will be the official draft order. So yeah, here you go.
Yeah, could be exciting.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about a wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks left to the baseball playoffs, and pretty much 2 weeks left to the start of the football season. So it's going to be a good time. And then just keep in mind the basketball drafts mid-October-ish. I don't think it's usually 2 or 3 days before the first games is when we usually do these things. So in the evening after you've put the wives and kids to bed. So plan now, Todd. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, it's on. Talk to Cammy. Let her know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and Scott, you might have to break this to your new wife on your wedding night. So,
Yeah.
um,
You need to prioritize this, Scott.
yeah. All right. Well, we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Until next time.
See y'all next month.
Later, y'all.